Thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin tonight in the Northwest Territories, where a series of violent incidents in the South Slave region have left residents shaken. Most have been linked to the drug trade, and the RCMP say getting people to speak out has been a major challenge. The CBC's Nadir Hashmi reports.
Since August last year, Fort Smith, Fort Resolution and Hay River have faced targeted incidents including shootings, arson attempts, house and vehicle fires. RCMP say most are linked to the drug trade. Fort Smith mayor says residents are in fear.
I feel nervous, makes you feel, geez, what's happening to my little town?
On March 7th, RCMP reported a house fire and possible gunshots in Fort Smith. Ferguson says RCMP told her it's a targeted event in relation to the drug trade. She urges residents to report what they know to the police.
Quit hiding these people in our communities. Articulate or let the police know, report, become a confidential informant.
RCMP say with all the recent violence in South Slave, they're looking at each case separately and are not drawing any links between them at the moment.
I cannot disclose whether or not where that investigation is taking us at this point, but we are looking at all facets of the investigation.
Lai says Fort Resolution residents are especially concerned after an arson attempt and gunshots last week. He met with community members and leaders to hear their concerns.
Emotions are running high in the community.
A community leader says people are on the edge.
The elders are living in fear. Not only elders, all the people in the community.
Beck says people now lock their homes constantly due to rising drug-related violence. He also worries about the impact it may have on children.
Can you imagine the kids are growing up in the schools, seeing what's going on? Pretty soon they're going to think it's a normal thing. Then what's going to happen for the future?
He says the situation is getting out of hand and that RCMP and the government need to step up. In an email response, GNWT says they have formed a territorial crime reduction unit and an emergency response team. They say these units provide dedicated enforcement capacity to disrupt the flow of drugs into the communities. Though Lai says public cooperation is the most important factor.
The information flow, that dialogue, constructive dialogue to move things forward. That would be, I'd say, the biggest challenge that we're facing.
He urges residents to share information through RCMP detachments, Crime Stoppers tip line, or other discreet ways. Nadir Hashmi, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Massive changes are being proposed for the RCMP, and they could have an impact in the north and across the country. Outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has outlined a new vision for the RCMP. He says it should focus on national security and move away from boots-on-the-ground policing. The North has relied on the Mounties for policing for decades. The commanding officer of the RCMP in the Yukon says Trudeau's proposal came as a surprise. She says it's an opportunity for a conversation about the future of the force.
We're not going anywhere. I'm very, very confident in that. As a police service, communities need us. I think that we're being asked frequently for more of our resources. That comes with pressure and expectations as well. But that frontline engagement and relationship and trust and respect that gets built, that permeates all the way through our requirements of being the National Police Service right to federal policing.
Trudeau says current RCMP policing contracts with provinces and territories will expire in 2032. He suggests that territories and provinces start planning now. Nunavut's child advocate is frustrated with the territory's lack of progress in protecting children and youth. Jane Bates says a new report from the Auditor General of Canada shows ongoing problems with the Nunavut Department of Family Services. Specifically, the report shows little to no improvement in services for children, youth, and families. Bates highlights shortcomings in case management and the monitoring of out-of-territory residential care facilities. Bates says those issues were well known before the last Auditor General's report in 2023.
The department needs to revisit that framework, revisit the action plan, and really come up with some concrete, very specific goals that are that have times attached to them. It's not done in 6 months. Children, youth, and families can't wait another 15 years for the Department of Family Services to deliver a continuum of child welfare services. It's just not feasible, and it's certainly not acceptable.
This year's report from the Auditor General of Canada is a follow-up to the 2023 report, and that report was part of a series of reviews spanning several years. Nunavut MP Lori Idlaut is reacting to the renewal of the Inuit Child First initiative. The federal government announced on Saturday that the program will be renewed for another year. Funding was set to run out on March 31st. The Inuit Child First initiative provides money for social, health, and educational support to all Inuit children in Canada. Idlaut says she's proud of Nunavummiut for coming together to keep the program going.
So many people spoke up about their concerns for the loss of the program. And I think it was all their voices that helped make sure that this program was extended for another year. And this is what happens when Inuit come together. We make a difference in what will happen for our children and our grandchildren.
Idlaut believes there will be a sense of relief for families who depend on the program. Indigenous Services Canada says almost 6,000 children from Nunavut accessed the program between 2023 and 2024. The government of the Northwest Territories has released a revised version of its Indigenous employment policy. It's meant to increase the number of Indigenous employees in the government. First Nations, Inuit, and Métis make up almost half the NWT's population, but only about 29% of the GNWT workforce is Indigenous. This is the government's second shot at replacing its long-standing affirmative action policy. In December, it announced a policy that gave Indigenous candidates preference regardless of whether they're from the NWT or other parts of Canada. The revised policy released today gives Indigenous people from the NWT priority over those from outside the territory. The city of Yellowknife will spend money originally planned for a new water pipeline on a new pump house instead. Costs for replacing Yellowknife's drinking water line have ballooned to over 200% higher than the original cost. It's now over $100 million. Yellowknife City Council is still considering how to advance that project. In the meantime, city staff want to use federal money for the pipeline on the aging pump house.
I don't think we have any other option here. I think this is the most reasonable way to be able to address our current situation, not only with our capital funding, but with the federal funding being applied to this. This is the most pragmatic way we can go about governing this city.
Some parts of the pump house are over 70 years old. City staff say retrofits would make it more difficult to bring the facility up to code. Replacing the pump house is expected to cost $37 million. The federal government will provide nearly $26 million, and the city of Yellowknife will be responsible for finding the rest. The Northwest Territories may be able to bring in more immigrants through its nominee program if they are asylum seekers. The nominee program helps temporary workers get residency in Canada, and the federal government recently made major cuts to the program. The NWT's quota was halved. Now, the territory's Minister of Education, Culture and Employment says there's a new offer on the table.
Through my conversations with the federal government, the federal minister did offer to the Northwest Territories an opportunity to potentially increase our allotment for the Northwest Territories nominee program. And the conversation there revolves around the Northwest Territories welcoming asylum seekers to the territory.
Is the minister going to be taking the federal minister up on his offer and get our quota back?
I have asked for further details from the federal minister to better understand exactly who he would be speaking about, and then also the potential demands on our system, for example, our healthcare system, and then in addition have wanted to better understand what support services the federal government would be open to offering the Northwest Territories.
Cleveland says she's working with NWT MP Michael McLeod to get that information, but she doesn't have a timeline for when it'll come. Yukon politicians are voicing their thoughts on the contract extension for the operators of the troubled Whitehorse Emergency Shelter. A group called Connective has run the facility since 2022. Its contract was due to expire this month, but as we told you yesterday, the Yukon government announced that Connective is getting an extra 3 months.
My concern goes back to the safety of people accessing the shelter, the safety of people who are going to the shelter to access any level of services that are provided at the shelter. And again, what measures are in place at the shelter for people no matter what lifestyle they're living? And what risks do they face when they're accessing the shelter? Why are we seeing people die at the shelter? And when these deaths could be prevented?
What we're calling for is a more higher barrier level of service for that facility. I mean, moving to the low barrier delivery model that the Liberals did back in 2019 when they took the facility over from the Salvation Army has been an abject failure. Everything since the time the Yukon government took over that facility, we've seen a decline in the quality of the neighborhood, in the quality of the service. Report after report have pointed out that it's not meeting the needs of the clients, the neighborhood, or the Yukon government that ultimately is responsible for it.
Meanwhile, the Yukon government is standing by Connective. A coroner's inquest last year made numerous recommendations for change at the shelter after 4 women died there. The government says those changes are now in place, and the operators of the shelter are committed.
Connective are experts in their field. They are, and they deserve our confidence as well. What they do is commit to this community and have done so. They've committed to bringing their expertise and to assisting the individuals at the shelter that need assistance at 405 Alexander. And they've committed to improvements, not only through the review that we've done with them, through the oversight that government has with them, but through the jury recommendations as well. And they've come to the table every single time. They've continued to build community, and we need to make sure that we are providing this service. I mean, the risk of changing a vendor at this time or of an operator for 405 Alexander is a risk to real people. People who go there every day and every night and take the opportunities that are provided for them there and the safety that's provided for them there. I'm not prepared for us to have that end. I'm not prepared for us to not provide that service. We're dedicated to providing that service and to the aspects of the substance use health emergency and the addictions services that can be provided there, and with hopes that we help individuals change what is difficult in their lives and to change their addiction behavior.
McPhee says the Yukon government has finished a review of Connective programs. She says they're finishing a report that will be tabled soon. As of this afternoon, Donald Trump says he will not double tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. Today, the U.S. president fired off new tariff threats on Canadian imports, sparking yet another dizzying day of unclear policies. Katie Simpson reports.
Canada will face a 25% steel and aluminum tariff starting Wednesday after a roller coaster of a day with threats and policies changing quickly. It started with the U.S. president threatening to double steel and aluminum tariffs on Canada to 50%. The White House says Donald Trump was angry with part of Canada's tariff retaliation plan, specifically the 25% surcharge Ontario placed on energy powering New York, Michigan, and Minnesota, and Ontario Premier Doug Ford's threats to cut off energy altogether.
There would be grave consequences imposed on Canada if they think about shutting off electricity. Canada would be very wise not to shut off electricity for the American people, and we hope that that does not happen.
Not long after the White House briefing, Premier Ford announced he would suspend the energy surcharge after a phone call with U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. Ford described the call as productive, saying he'd been invited to meetings at the White House later this week. Trump himself then suggested he may ease up on his new threats against Canadian steel and aluminum.
The Ontario Premier calling you and giving you his decision about the electricity surcharge, and you said you were pleased about that. Will you make a different decision now about the tariffs on Canada, where you reduce it.
At that, but probably so. Yeah,
You're looking
he was
at
a
it.
gentleman.
Just to be clear, sir, the 50%, is that going to go into effect on Canada or not?
Which one?
The 50% tariffs.
I'll let you know about it. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll let you. But I appreciated his call. I thought it was nice.
The White House then confirmed it would proceed with its original tariff threat, 25% on steel and aluminum, no exceptions. Canadian officials are expected to respond Wednesday. A retaliation plan is being finalized, the size and scope of counter tariffs and other measures to be revealed then. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
Canadian businesses and workers are bracing for the impact of those U.S. tariffs on steel and aluminum. The U.S. imported more than $35 billion worth last year. Tens of thousands of Canadians are employed in the industry. Nisha Patel has more.
Rahim Molu is preparing for tough weeks ahead.
The situation is worrying. It definitely keeps me up at night.
His small family-run business makes steel window wells and garden beds. Just the threat of tariffs has already had an impact.
All of our American distributors have canceled their orders with us. I don't think we'll ever get all of that business back.
U.S. President Donald Trump says starting Wednesday, tariffs may be imposed on steel and aluminum imported from Canada. The rate seems to target raw materials as well as finished metal products.
So that really wipes out any opportunity to continue a profitable business into the United States. So we have to look at that very closely.
Canada exports more than 90% of its steel and aluminum south of the border. While companies are trying to come up with backup plans, in the short term, tariffs could be deeply damaging.
We're talking about developing new markets, increasing productivity, and all those things. But, I mean, that will take months, if not years.
When Donald Trump hit steel and aluminum with tariffs back in 2018, Canadian exports sank and metal prices rose. It lasted for about a year, but disrupted other sectors too, from manufacturing to construction.
It's one of those costs that can cascade over time. And not just in Canada, but also south of the border.
Ontario and Quebec will likely bear the brunt of these latest tariffs. With tens of thousands of jobs tied to the industries, workers are on edge.
We're afraid of job loss. When job loss happens, even at one company, there's always a cascading effect.
Rahim Molu says he's changed his business plan entirely, canceling any plans to expand to the U.S.
Even if miraculously a new deal was reached overnight, it's not like flipping a light switch. Our American distributors aren't going to be rushing to do business with us.
Whatever tomorrow brings, for him, the damage has already been done. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
Greenlanders are going to the polls today for the country's parliamentary election. Independence is a key theme after U.S. President Donald Trump said he wants to control the Arctic island. A vote over independence is not on the ballot, but Greenland does have the right to hold a referendum. The island is home to 56,000 people. 31 members of parliament will be elected today. Unofficial results should be available tonight, but the official results could take weeks due to ballots arriving by boat, plane, and helicopter from all over the island.
When you're able to take the next step and invest in yourself and your future, that brings a ton of security.
Definitely something we never thought we'd be able to get if it wasn't for the homebuyers plan.
Find out if you qualify at canada.ca/everydollar-counts.
Forced and coerced sterilization of Indigenous people is still happening. The Survivors Circle for Reproductive Justice has supports available for Indigenous survivors. Join the National Registry and access up to $70,000 in healing support funds for individuals, families, and communities. The deadline to apply is March 31st. If you or someone you know has experienced forced and coerced sterilization, please call 1-877-386-0750 or visit reproductivejusticesurvivors.ca for more information.
Escaping off the attitude, old man eating all my food. Don't be kind, don't be rude, just shake your boots and let it all get loose.
builds a wall around you. Know this, we're here to help if you want us to. It's never too early or too late to ask for help with a drinking problem. Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a way out.
The Inuit Heritage Trust in Nunavut is getting a funding boost towards a proposed heritage centre. The trust will receive $50 million for the project. The centre will be located in Iqaluit. Funding comes from the governments of Canada and Nunavut Nunavut Incorporated. The executive director of the Inuit Heritage Trust says the funding is an important step toward preserving Inuit history.
We're missing out today with not having a heritage centre, with our youth not learning about their past history. So this centre is really important to have, to build our connection with our past.
The centre will house more than 200,000 artifacts and pieces of art that are currently in storage in Quebec and Manitoba. There will also be space for traditional woodworking, sewing, and hide preparation. The total cost of the project is estimated at around $150 million. The centre will span 6,000 square meters. Inuvik NWT is welcoming back two popular services, the Inuvik Works program and the Next to New thrift store. Mayor Peter Clarkson says the community requested both. CBC's Des Lorraine has more.
We've expanded it out. There'll be lots more room for everybody to donate items and to shop.
The Next to New thrift store is almost ready to open its doors in Inuvik. The work to restore the building is being done by the Inuvik Works program. The Inuvik Works program helps people that are struggling to get back into the workforce with training, counseling, and job opportunities.
Everybody is so excited. Everybody I talk to, they either have items to donate to the Next to New store, they have jobs. I've had calls already from elders and people who want roofs cleaned off, the snow cleaned off the roofs and things like that. The partners I've been meeting with, the potential funders, everybody is so excited to have the project back.
Mayor Peter Clarkson says the Inuvik Works program was a big benefit when it last ran in the early 2000s. The group would shovel snow or help set up community events and other odd jobs aimed to help build skills in residents.
It was a great program that really helped a lot of people, kind of helped people get back on their feet, some meaningful employment, but it also helped lots of organizations and elders throughout the entire community.
Resumes for the Inuvik Works program can be sent to Patricia Davison at the town office. Donations for Next to New can be made in April via an online form. Des Lorraine, CBC News, Inuvik.
Wildlife biologists say they're seeing more Arctic foxes in Nunavik this year, and it's likely because of an increase in prey. Arctic foxes prey mostly on small creatures like seal pups, fish, and seabirds. One wildlife biologist says there's been significantly higher populations of small mammals in the region the last few summers.
Usually for Arctic fox, it's mainly small mammals like lemmings. So when the preys are really abundant during the summer, for example, the Arctic fox has good reproduction and good survival. So that's why the year after we have like bigger numbers of foxes.
Massey says when prey populations go down, fox populations will follow. With the current higher numbers, Massey is warning against rabies. She says even a healthy-looking fox could be carrying, and she says residents should vaccinate their dogs against the virus. Students at Kaleme Dene School in Yellowknife had a once-in-a-lifetime experience today. They met a real-life astronaut, Jeremy Hansen. Hansen will soon be part of the Artemis 2 mission to orbit the moon. He visited the Yellowknife School as part of his tour across the Northwest Territories. Take a look.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi.
Whoa, look at everybody. Hi, everyone. Well, I had this really warm welcome into Treaty 8, and I've been spending some time in both Deda and Dilo today speaking with students and talking a little bit about what we're doing in the space program. So my rocket will leave from a place called the Kennedy Space Center in Florida in the United States.
We met a real space person.
astronaut. My favorite part when the astronaut show us some cool video.
Only the top part of the rocket comes back.
Kids have great questions about black holes and the International Space Station and how to be an astronaut. And so we let the questions evolve and we let our thinking drive our learning. I think when we get opportunities like this and it's been the focus of our learning already, it's a great way to drive home that what we learned was important, that what you do at school does relate to real life. I think we get the opportunity to make connections in a wildly different way than we do to a book or to a video in a real life.
What does it mean? Sun is big.
Mostly all I really want to convey is that in space we work as a team and we lift up everyone's gifts. We use everyone's gifts to accomplish our goals, and it's the same for all Canadians. We can work together to accomplish things to help each other live better lives on the planet. And just want them to realize that their contributions are valuable and they should pursue their dreams. Wow. Are you all standing by your favorite planets?
I really want to go on the moon. I go to the moon because the space guy said there was secret things on the moon. So I could take the rocks and put them in a bag and bring them back and science them.
If you tell other people what you want to do, they will help you do it. And that's what happened to me. I told people I wanted to be an astronaut. Really important, as any human, but as a young person, to know what you want to do. But once you figure that out, share those goals and dreams with other people, and you'll be amazed at how people will lift you up, support you, point you in the right direction, and help you overcome the obstacles that are just so common in life. So we can take them to space, but we can also improve how we do it here on the planet and help ourselves live better lives. Hugs are fine if you want a hug, yep. Okay. Big group hug. All right. And a high.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/North. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Earth is our collective home. That makes us all family. As family, we strive to love and protect each other. Diversity of species is our strength. We are all connected. We survive and thrive together. We celebrate many things this season and make many choices. Taking care of our family should be the easiest. We're in this together.